if you are doing web or mobile layouts, you will have need for. So we are going to start with View and Rulers. To bring up rulers so that we can add guides to the page, and you will notice my ruler is defaulting to inches. If I am doing a web mockup or even devices and mobile, I probably want to be in pixels. So I am going to right-click anywhere on the ruler and choose Pixels. I had decided that I would like my inset from the left on this web page to be at about 20 pixels, and you will notice the rich cursors popping up to let me know where this guy is landing. However, I zoomed too far out to get exactly 220, so I am going to let go and hit Command plus or Control plus to zoom in. I can hold down my spacebar and click and drag over and down, and now I can move this guide and I should be able to get det on 20 pixels. I am going to start with the OII logo, and I will just drag that over and it should snap to guides automatically. Under the View menu is Snap, and for the Snap to settings, you could choose whether it snaps to your guides, to other layers, to the document balance, and I don't have grids or slices showing, so that's why they are grayed out. Now in this document, I have tons of layers, so if I double-click the word Color and double-click the word Adjustments, it can be difficult to manage. I like to leave big stuff like the logo and this main image. I will hit Command 0 or Control 0 so you could see it. I like to leave those at the top where they are easy to get to. I will click the eye icon to see that this is part of the top navigation. So let's make a folder group. The little folder icon of the bottom will create a new folder group, and I will double-click to give it a name and call it Top Muth for navigation. I am going to put that below the big image and other content, and I am just watching that I see a thicker gray line when I let go, so I know where it goes. So this is the navigation. This is the red bar, and I will click and hold down Shift and click on red bar to select both, and then I will drag and drop them into top left, and now I can collapse it to make it easier to see. I will notice that the search is also off of my guide, so I am going to zoom back in, and this time I will hold down Command Spacebar or Control Spacebar to do a scrubby zoom. Now this scrubby or dynamic zoom will only work if you have an accelerated video card. If you don't, you might be getting a marquee zoom, where if you hold down Control or Spacebar together or Command or Spacebar together, you can click and drag to zoom into exact area. So I already have the search piece loaded into folders, and I will go back to my Move tool and I will distract this over until it snaps to my 20 pixel guide. I will do the same with questions. Great, and it does show me the distance that I moved it originally, but if I am concerned, I let go a hair off. If I could select both search and questions and use the align left edges on the options bar across the top of the screen. If I zoom out with Command minus or Control minus, I think I want to put these two folders in another group called Left Math, so I will make another new folder group. I called it folder group because it looked like folders, but they are technically just called groups, and we will call this Left Math. I will click on Search, hold down Shift and click on Questions and drag them in, so now that can be collapsed. And if I hit Command 0 or Control 0, I could see I have got the Illustrator icon in Design icon and Photoshop icon, kind of loose. They are in New Classes or Most Popular Power User. So that's handy because right now I could select all three with click and shift click. You don't need to hold down Shift and click here and then here if one item is selected. Holding down Shift grabs everything in between when you click again, but I only want these three. So I will do click, shift click, and I will use the align centers, and now they are all perfectly centered, and now I will put them in the folder where they belong. So this will go with New Classes. In Design, we will go with Most Popular, and Photoshop will go with Power User. And let's clean this even further by making another new folder group, and we will call this Right Left. Nothing drives me more nuts than seeing unnamed groups or background copy 1, background copy 2, layer copy 1, or layer copy 2. I realize they make medication for that, but I just like to be my Photoshop layers and layer groups so that anyone who opens my file can understand what it's supposed to be. So I will select these two with Shift and drag them into right left, and I will select Power User and drag it into right left. And I am curious about what this is, so click the eye icon. That's the paragraph below Power Users, so I will drag it in with Power User. Finally, I will collapse Right Now, and I have a right bar, and that probably should be in with the right net. So I will drag that in, and I may need to double check the stacking order of that, whether I want this right bar above everything. You will see the stroke in the fill come forward. I do not, so I will undo with Command Z or Control Z. It did land properly at the bottom of the layer stack, and then I have these three main pieces which are already in a folder. So I will expand them, and if they are in a folder, and I want to make sure that these three main always move together, I can actually link them so whenever I pick up one, they all move. But before I do that, I am going to use my Shift key to select all three, and I will try the Distribute Horizontal Centers. Now the distance from here to here and here to here is perfect, and I will align the top edges, and that worked perfectly also, but group training looks a little bit off from national accounts. So I am going to click on Left Main and just use my right arrow key on my keyboard to nudge that in until it looks visually aligned with the body paragraph above. Then I will Shift click to select all three and distribute them by their centers one more time. So this way, if I am on another layer, I actually love to turn on Auto Select. That way, if I click on an eye, it knows to move that group. I will undo that. If I click on these three links layers, it moves them. But they are part of three main that folder group. So I am going to undo and say Auto Select the layer, not the group. Now I can move I by itself. I will undo. I can move the photo for national accounts by itself. So that's the difference between selecting the group, the entire folder, or just an individual layer. Finally, I am going to select Left Middle and Right Main with my Shift key and hold down Command on the Mac or Control on Windows to select the main background, and I will center those to one another. But in this case, these three need to be one group, and main background shouldn't be part of it to center to one another. So I am going to take the paragraph here and the main background with the Command key and drag them up above three main. Make sure you aren't here where you see a white outline around three main, but you see a thicker white line up above three main, and it places them above. And now I can collapse three main and drag it above so they are back on top. Finally, if I have three main selected and I hold down Command and click on the words Main Background, I should be able to center these to one another, and I have roughly a perfect layout. You could add other guides. You could lock them down so that they don't move to one another. They are really helpful in lining up individual pieces. But that's our tour of creating folder groups, and they are not called folder groups. They are just called groups or layer groups, but I called folder groups because they look like folders. Setting up guides, right-clicking to change your unit of measure, and using the Options bar while on the Move tool to align objects.